And now I want to watch this documentary which is like
TV.
Literally a cut above everything else, dude.
Highly protective and very ordered in the way that they do things. They don't like things to be different. So if you've got a lot of kids coming and going or visitors coming and going, it can be a difficult pet in that situation.
Documentary TV is literally better than everything else that I've seen on this matter, on this process. Okay? Hold on. Why are you guys saying Pepela? Stop.
What I love most about the Tibetan Mastiff is their innate ability to understand people and their subjects. So we have the alpacas, so as they're heard, to be able to understand how they're feeling, if anything's a little bit different. They're incredibly intuitive. I always say that they can read our thoughts, or maybe it's really they can hear our thoughts, because it seems like when you're thinking about them and they're asleep, they wake up and they're ready for whatever's going on. The history of the Tibetan Mastiff originated in Tibet, in the high plateau out there. They are a very primitive breed and were originally described to the West by Marco Polo. They're called Mastiff, Tibetan Mastiff, because that was the word for large dog. So they're not really a Mastiff, they're a Molosser, which is a little bit different. Their original working purpose is family and livestock protection. So their Tibetan name is Do Kai, which means chained dog, literally. And so they would be chained up with the nomads during the day, and then at night they would be set free to protect the families and the livestock from predators. Tibetan Mastiffs are more of a perimeter guardian than a flock guardian. So if you think of a Mayaremma, or Great Pyrenees often are very, very bonded to their stock, and so separating them from their stock can be challenging and stressful for the dog. The Tibetan Mastiff is more of a perimeter guardian, so they work the perimeters. Not that they don't care about or build relationships with their stock, it's just not as intense. So they're much more of a perimeter type guardian. There are about 40 recognized breeds of livestock guardian dogs, and they range generally from west to east to more human tolerant and more human defensive. And so on the human tolerant side, you have your Great Pyrenees, which is a really common dog, Anatolian Shepherd, Mayaremma. Those are real common dogs here in North America. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got the Tibetan Mastiff, the Central Asian Shepherd, Sarplaninac, which I probably didn't pronounce that quite right, and the like Caucasian Ovcharka are very at the other end. Generally, Tibetan Mastiffs are much more human defensive than most livestock guardians that the average person is going to interact with in the United States. Generally, they're aloof with strangers. So for us, like what we did with you, is we have a specific routine we go through to introduce new people to the property, and so that takes place in a space kind of out here, away from the alpaca, so they're not really working. They're very, very protective and highly defensive if we're not home or if that introduction protocol didn't happen. So our property is just over 3 acres, 3.2 acres. We are zoned for farming here, but we are surrounded by residential areas. The front range is growing a lot, so the suburban area is definitely encroaching in here. But all of the properties that are, I should say, most of the properties that are adjacent to us are also farmland, up to, I think the biggest property here is about 5 acres. My husband Brad and I live here, roughly an hour north of Denver and about a half an hour from Cheyenne, Wyoming. So it's a higher altitude. We're just under a mile above sea level, and so it's an arid environment. We have a pretty good winter here, and so just my husband and I are here. We have the alpacas and the dogs. We have 11 dogs total at the moment, and 14 alpacas, so it's a pretty high ratio. The predators generally in the area are, we can have black bear and mountain lion. They don't come around here too much, so mostly what we see is coyotes.
Hello.
And there's a pack of coyotes just to the north here that we hear often. And neighborhood dogs are actually the biggest threat to alpaca, and people too. So the bipedal predator it's a potential as well. So a typical day here at the Alpaca Mundo farm is that we get up in the morning, and unfortunately, because we have close residential neighbors, our dogs are actually in their kennel at night, which is a little bit different. A full-time working livestock guardian would be out with the dogs.
Thank you to the chatter who said Kaya is chewing her potty pad. I just saw that. Not good. Bro, these dogs fucking just lay all day. It's awesome. She's just like, she's a chiller, dude. How long will the cage setup last? I'm gonna have her in this setup for a little bit. I don't know. I mean, until I'm like confident that she can just until I'm confident that like I can take her outside periodically, but she's literally super, super young right now. You know what I mean? Lazy liberal dog doesn't want to work. No, this is not a liberal dog. This is a working dog that wants to work at night. She goes to work at night, dude. Yeah, until she's potty trained. She's a baby. She's a little baby.
Are out with their herd 24/7 all the time. So Tibetan Mastiffs bark a lot. That's livestock guardians in general. Tibetan Mastiffs especially bark a lot. That's their first level of defense in announcing their presence and announcing to predators that they shouldn't come any closer. So they bark a lot, which is not great for people who live nearby who maybe don't like dogs as much. And so that's part of the problem with
people can suck it, dude. That's what I think.
The cities growing up is that's squeezing kind of the farmers out a bit.
Y'all are fucking demons for real, by the way. Everybody throwing up pepelas when you hear like, oh, Tibetan Mastiffs bark a lot. Y'all are fucking demons for real, okay? Why? Why is it that like you're excited at the prospect of this dog barking a lot? Why is that exciting to you?
So we get up in the morning. It's pretty much as soon as it's daylight, we start working on the chores, let the dogs out. They do their perimeter checks and livestock checks, and we feed everybody and check, fill the water, do whatever chores that we need to do.
Also, this is more about their fucking alpacas than the Tibetan
We spend
Mastiff.
about an hour in the morning, and then we'll go about our day and then do the same sort of thing in the evening and bring everybody in at night. So while we don't have the dogs on 24/7, we'd like for them to be on duty 24/7, but just having them out there helps.
Okay, this is better. Dogs 101.
Nearly every huge dog in the world owes their heritage to one very special breed that started it all. Weighing in at 25 Chihuahuas, the Tibetan Mastiff.
The Tibetan Mastiff is a massive, big, furry, bulky dog.
The Tibetan Mastiff's look is not just for show. They possess the strength and smarts to protect their families and flocks from outside threats.
When they were used as guard dogs, they would be entrusted with the care of...
Americans will use any unit but metric. So true. And yes, this video is 2005's coded, yes.
the entire village.
A job that the Tibetan Mastiff has had since ancient times, when their ancestors lived with nomads on the high plateaus and valleys of the Himalayas. Some of these tough and intimidating dogs were brought as far west as Europe by the likes of Attila the Hun. Their progeny went on to become the modern Molosser breeds, including the Mastiffs, the Boxer, and the St. Bernard. They're treasured not only for their enormous size, but also for their breathtaking bark. The source of this voluminous...
Was that an Apple iPhone alarm sound before Apple iPhone alarm sounds were a thing? What the fuck?
This voice is found in the...
Like, that's crazy. The boom, boom, blum, boom, blum, 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 blum.
The source of this voluminous voice is found in the larynx, which houses the vocal cords. The vocal folds contract as the lungs push air through the larynx, causing
Okay, I didn't want to learn this much about motherfucking mastiffs, dog. I'm
the
saying,
folds to
like,
vibrate at a high speed. This produces the barking sound. Larger dogs have longer vocal folds and larger lungs. That produces a deeper, louder bark. After you hear its weighty woof, the next thing you'll see is the Tibetan Mastiff's heavy muscular build. Those muscles give the Tibetan Mastiff the strength to back up its bark. They have a plumed tail that can curl over and rest on their back. And their long, thick double coat is especially heavy on the neck and shoulders. This creates the appearance of a lion-like mane. Its large and striking appearance has captured the imagination of the most populous country in the world, China. It's a surprising new trend in a country where dog ownership was actually
hungover teacher video. Mao Zedong, dude?
banned 50 years ago. But now the Tibetan Mastiff is at the forefront of a Chinese dog fancy revolution. Over the past 20 years, as the Chinese
dude, of course we got the Xi Jinping's favorite dog, dude.
middle class grew from poverty to prosperity, so too have
love
the
you,
legions
sir.
of dog lovers.
Sir, I love
They
you.
now flock to Tibetan Mastiff conventions to see the best of the breed. Today in modern China, owning a Tibetan Mastiff is considered the ultimate status symbol.
A large, sprawling villa and a big, ferocious Tibetan Mastiff. That's what it takes to be.
See, I got the Chinese status symbol, baby. Large villa. Large Chinese villa and just a big dog on that
Very rich
sprawling
and famous.
yard.
In fact, there was a dog that sold for almost $600,000 in China.
And one man has followed its meteoric rise from the beginning.
Yeah, this Karma, the first male that
That's insane, bro. $600,000 for a dog? What the fuck is the dog doing? What the dog doing? No, but like for real. What the dog doing, motherfucker? I don't get it.
we imported.
Dr. Andrew Wang is a Chinese-born American who has been a Tibetan Mastiff aficionado for over 20 years, ever since he first laid eyes on one as a young man in China.
They're very intelligent creatures, and they are perfect guardians.
His mission is to help the Tibetan Mastiff transition from its history as a ferocious guard dog to a modern family companion breed by promoting proper health and breeding standards. So he's heading to China, where canine culture is still a work in progress.
During this trip, I would like to visit my old TN friends and know some new friends.
Western innovations like genetic health screenings and pedigree registries remain in their infancy here, and that's a problem for a suddenly sought-after breed. So Andrew is meeting with successful Chinese breeders to encourage them to adopt these new techniques. At a Mastiff kennel outside Beijing, Andrew meets one of the few female breeders in the country, Ms. Zhang Ji. Andrew gets a look at some of Ms. Zhang's finest Mastiffs.
Nice, baby. Yeah, we know you're pretty.
He has very nice muzzle and a wider forehead. They say, ah.
These face-to-face meetings are crucial when it comes to convincing his Chinese counterparts to participate in international registries. That would pave the way for future cooperation between American and Chinese breeders. And Andrew has made a great impression.
We want to learn their culture, their experience of breeding the dogs, and other good things so that we can preserve them.
She also told me, actually made me very excited, more and more people started to realize the significance of the healthcare screening for Tibetan Mastiffs.
Because they're highly prized as status symbols in China, it's still uncommon to see these mighty mutts as family pets. But in the rural suburbs,
Why is this fucking dog breed dog 101 video turned into like Chinese social commentary? Like it's very odd that like what, you can't just like talk about the fucking breed, like what the traits are and shit. It's like China has a one dog policy. Just like America has a one China, two systems policy, China has a one dog, two pets policy. It's odd.
Suburbs of Beijing, the Gao family's mastiffs are just that.
Kids adopted the baby Tibetan Mastiffs they like. They brought up the dogs, so when they have time, they feed dogs, play with them, walk them. I feel happy too, because kids are so innocent. They have their fun. I let them love animals.
For Andrew, this is the end game, to help the Tibetan Mastiff survive its newfound fame and take its place in Chinese society as the family dog he knows it can be. The Tibetan Mastiff does best in a cool and dry climate. Their territorial nature means their yard will need a big fence. The Tibetan Mastiff can experience a few specific health concerns. Hip dysplasia, thyroid problems, skin conditions, and ear infections are just some of them. Their thick seasonal undercoats shed heavily in the spring and fall and will require frequent brushing.
For about 3 weeks, your house is going to be covered in hair.
As an independent and often stubborn breed, the Tibetan Mastiff is certainly not for the novice dog owner. Tibetan Mastiffs are loving and protective toward their families, but wary of strangers. To keep a Tibetan Mastiff happy and healthy, you want to be sure you have a cool, dry environment. This long-lived breed experiences many of the common health problems of large dogs, and its thick coat will need your attention during the shedding seasons. It's important to make sure your Tibetan Mastiff gets social experience from a young age, but if you can put in the time and care, you'll be repaid with unflagging loyalty. When this special Dogs 101 comes back,